Hey everyone, welcome to episode 239 of the All Dolphins podcast. A very special episode indeed, as you can see by the two gentlemen on the bottom here. Omar and I are very pleased to be joined today by Dave. There you go, Dave Hyde of the South Florida Sun Sentinel, Joe Schad of the Palm Beach Post, in what I would going to call our Dolphin writer roundtable. So let's hit the ground running. We're going to start. State of the Dolphins. Schad, go. How's that?
Not very good. It's not very good. I'm a little more concerned now than I was at the end of the year when Dolphins GM Chris Greer said, "Don't worry about the salary cap." He's kind of like Omar Kelly over there. The salary cap isn't real. Don't worry about it. They got plenty of guys they can restructure. Anybody we want to bring back, no problem. And now apparently Christian Wilkins is walking out the door. So apparently the salary cap is real.
Dolphins, in one word, is broke. Right?
No cap.
No cap. That's an even better one.
Dave, how would you answer that very open-ended question?
Well, you know what? I just came back from a Florida Panthers practice where Bill Zito talked, the general manager. Yeah. Okay, and for 20 years, for a quarter century, the Panthers were the worst franchise in South Florida, certainly maybe in sports. They ranked because it was dysfunctional. It wasn't just they were bad, they were confusedly bad. Okay. And
what's
bad
different with the Dolphins?
Bad from the top. Well, you're leading me in here, Omar.
Wait, Omar, patience.
Okay. And what happened was one guy came in the organization, Bill Zito, and had a vision for who he's going to. He just signed Gustav Forsling, a defenseman he picked up off the waivers to an 8-year contract because he's become a top defenseman. My point isn't about hockey. My point is, for 20 years plus now, I've been waiting for that one guy to come in the Dolphins franchise and change it. Instead, they try to trick the system. Oh, we're gonna tank, and then we're going to turn around, we're going to spend all this money, and we're going to have 2 great years. It comes down to football decisions, not tricking and gaming and doing all this stuff. They need to make a lot of really good football decisions this offseason, and that's something that they haven't done a lot of in the last 20 years.
You sound like a man with trust issues, Dave.
I have no trust that it'll work out. Okay, I have none. But I leave that open space of hope that they'll make good decisions. And they put themselves through the past 5 years of this silly game plan into a real tough situation. They got to make really good decisions this offseason.
Yeah, all they need to do is add reasonably priced and very good left guard, center, right guard, defensive tackle, 2 edge rushers, a safety, and a linebacker. Other than that, they're in great shape.
Now listen though.
Oh, no, you forget. Did you count the edge? Okay, 2 edge rushers. You said 2 edge rushers. Go ahead. Okay.
Smart organizations can do it. Baltimore last year, their defensive line that the new defensive coordinator coached, their defensive line that went to the AFC title game and probably should have gone beyond, cost $18 million combined. The Dolphins are spending more on Bradley Chubb.
Hold on. That's not fair because they got like 2 of the edge rushers on the discount bin. And okay. I hear where you're coming, but then they also paid $15 million for Odell Beckham Jr. So let's not. And I love Baltimore. I think they're a well-run organization, probably one of the most well-run organizations. But sometimes it takes a little bit of luck and good evaluation. I think the biggest issue that I have, and yes, I do say that the salary cap isn't real, and it's more like dead money isn't real, but it's only not real when you are completely irresponsible and live off credit card and then transfer the balance off one credit card to another credit card and do what the New Orleans Saints have been doing for a decade. That's when it becomes real, and then it forces you to do a reset. Now, the Dolphins are kind of being resistant on doing a reset, and I understand why, because literally this is a 2-year window where they need to win big. But here's the thing. If you're going to be losing Christian Wilkins, Robert Hunt, I don't really know who else they're going to be losing.
They lost Jerome Baker. I mean,
you're going to cut Xavier Howard, Jerome Baker. Probably, you know, if you're going to lose a lot of those foundational pieces, you got to be able to replace them with a cheaper but just as productive pieces. And we know they're not going to do that in the draft because history says they don't.
Okay, I'm going to chime in here real quick about this, and I'm going to push back on you, Omar, with this idea of the cap's not real. The cap at some point has consequences in terms of your decision, and you keep saying that dead money is not real. Dead money takes up some of your cap space. So if the Dolphins weren't paying $10 million to Byron Jones and dead cap space, you can roll your eyes all you want. If they didn't have $10 million on the book for Byron Jones of dead space, that's $10 million that they would have.
It's money that they already spent to Byron Jones. Let me explain. When they paid him his ridiculous highest paid cornerback contract, his first year was a base salary of $1 million and then his roster bonus.
Correct.
And the way you extrapolate that out and trick the system is with the signing bonus and roster bonuses, which leaves you, when you jump out of the deal, it leaves you the dead money. But the money's already been paid. It's not like the NBA or Major League Baseball where you have to pay a luxury tax, or you have to pay dead money to a sum that's spread out throughout the league. No, you're paying dead money to nobody. It's accounted on your books, but you're paying it to nobody.
Can we bring the conversation as it relates to what's going on right now? And what I mean is,
thank you, Joe.
Chris Creer gave an indication that restructuring and extending folks like Jalen Ramsey, Bradley Chubb, Tyreek Hill was not going to be a problem. No problem at all. This is very easy. So why haven't any of these things happened yet?
Because they don't have to. The players don't have to agree to these restructures. And truthfully speaking, Jalen Ramsey's getting $25 million from the Dolphins this year. And to restructure, he's locking up his commitment to them for more years. Why would he want to do that when he doesn't know the direction of the franchise unless you're going to overpay me? Same thing with Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is going to have to be the highest paid receiver in the league if you're going to restructure his contract. And you can't just move the money around, because that makes it an even more complicated cap number for next year. And then his 2026 number is never, ever going to be paid. So it's not feasible to just keep moving money around. And you cannot restructure Bradley Chubb because it would be financially irresponsible.
Oh, somebody did not like your answer.
The scary thing also to me is we came out of the dark ages with the Dolphins a few years ago. And you look at Hill's 30.
You got to be specific about the dark ages, though.
Well, I mean, when they decided to go tanking, and I was like, oh, we're throwing away 2 to 3 seasons of twiddling our thumbs and watching what they build and not really caring. Not winning wasn't the goal. Okay, that of some people in the organization, and it was of others, which is a whole different issue. But let's get back to Hill's 30, Jalen Ramsey's 30, Chubb's 29, and you're talking of restructuring, pushing them out there, and all of a sudden they had the second oldest playoff team last year. Okay, and now you're
that's not fair. They had to add
no, that was without the Justin Houstons and all those. That was before. That stat doesn't include them. Okay.
Okay. All right. My apologies.
Kansas City had the second youngest defense. Mm-hmm. Okay. Look what's going on here. How to build. Okay. And what you can't do, and Hill and Ramsey are probably your best player on each side of the ball, or Hill certainly is. Okay. And they're 30, and you're going to extend them, and you're building around them. And I'm like, where are we going here? Where's this going?
How long do you want to rebuild it last, Dave?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is it's tough to build around 30-year-olds in the NFL. Okay.
Here's what I don't understand. Christian Wilkins, Dave, he was the first pick of the rebuild process.
Yeah.
He is an excellent player. Kudos to Chris Greer and Brian Flores and whoever else was involved. And now they're just going to let him walk when he's in a prime age.
They're not going to let him walk. They're going to try to bid on. They're going to try to bid on him and try to.
Why would you give away the leverage point of the franchise tag?
Because they couldn't put him in the salary cap. They could not squeeze that figure in the salary cap.
Chris Greer said that they could tag him if necessary. Chris Greer told me. He told all of us, I can tag this guy if necessary.
He's a liar.
That wasn't true.
He's a liar, Joe.
Here's the question. Here's the question. Is all this done to give Tua the extension? Is that what?
No. This has nothing to do with Tua. None of it.
You sure about that?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it has something. I just don't know.
No, because Tua's extension will help them create about $8 million in cap space. I don't think this doesn't have any. And Tua's extension is not going to come before March 13th. It's going to come.
Omar, we're talking down the line also because we're talking not just this year. We're talking next year.
They're focused on this year. They're focused on this year because I don't think anybody's going to have a job. Anybody making decisions is going to have a job if this thing goes south. Next year.
Are you sure about that, Omar?
At some point,
5 years into that tank rebuild, where we're going to come and there's no consequences other than
but
won too much.
They did put together an 11-win team that was one of the hottest teams in the NFL up until
very entertaining product.
Suffered a ridiculous amount of injuries at the end of the season.
Until they played good teams in December.
Let me stop. Let me stop the injury thing. Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay. I hate to get between you guys. It's like I'm a counselor or something. but okay, yes, there were injuries. There were abundant injuries on defense, especially. But when your second-round rookie cornerback can't get on the field, when your third-round linebacker, the two highest pick, the previous two, that exacerbates the situation.
It does.
When you throw so much to Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, 181 targets last year in Dallas. And everybody's like, wow, he's the only receiver they have. They're throwing to him so much. Tyreek Hill's had 170 and 171 targets the last 2 years. That's a recipe for not getting healthy in December and January. Okay. You got to take something off the plate of him. Anyways.
Yeah, but are you as good offensively if you do that? That's kind of like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Best player, yes.
Correct.
He's like the best weapon in the NFL. Why not throw him the ball more?
Because you always the last two seasons.
Don't say always.
But Omar, he's 30 now. He's 30. He's 30.
So everybody who's 30 needs to be thrown in the garbage bin in the NFL? Is this what we're doing?
Garbage bin, but this is the age where you got to start worrying a little more about health, especially a guy who's been hurt in December the last 2 years.
Chris Greer's moves need to be based on winning now. Win in 2024. They need to win this year. This guy is, and I like Chris Greer. He's a nice guy.
Everybody likes Chris Greer.
He's done a solid job in the draft since taking over. Solid. But it is a fact that he's been a part of the organization for 24 years of no playoff wins.
I call him the general manager for life. I mean, we're dictator for life, general manager for life.
Listen,
so why are we thinking that
he's figured out a way to survive the system by being able to blame shift? And the problem that I have with what's going on right now is that there is nobody else to blame for this. Not a single person. You are capped out because of Chris Greer. You have bad drafts that basically doesn't give you any replenishment players because of Chris Greer. Your time up.
Hold on. Are you suggesting that the idea of going all in, which we all know is what's happened, was strictly Chris Greer? And because me don't think so.
In fact, the idea of tanking was not Chris Greer's, right? I mean, that was Garfinkel, and Ross went along with it, and Chris Greer was there, said, yeah, I'll do it.
Oh, you calling names now. Okay, damn, Dave.
Well, I mean,
it goes higher than Chris Greer, so.
Yeah, listen, however they decided to do it, why ever they decided to do it, Tua, it was done, and we are here, and it's a solid product. They were the hottest team in the NFL before injuries. The question is, can you sustain it? And that was the biggest thing that I took from the owners' meeting when you guys sat down and talked to them. You know, this is not sustainable. It's not. Not in. And I looked at it in the offseason. I looked at it last year, and I was like, wait a minute. When you have all of these young players who are coming up for new deals and want their money all at the same time, guys are going to escape. They're going to graduate.
But they should have signed Robert Hunt before last season for $11 million a year, so that they wouldn't be looking at another team paying him $15 now. That's the foresight that's required.
Correct.
Lock up the right guys at the right time. Don't let them get to free agent. Why did the Dolphins tag Mike Gesicki, but they're not tagging Christian Wilkins?
Because they don't have the money to do it.
I know why they tagged Mike Gesicki. They tagged Mike Gesicki because at the time they didn't have Tyreek Hill. And Gesicki jumped on the franchise tag and signed it immediately. And then lo and behold, Tyreek Hill becomes available. And it's like, oh, what do we do with Gesicki? We're stuck with him.
No, Gesicki could have worked with Tyreek Hill if he could actually play and block.
No, sorry, disagree. But okay.
What are they looking for right now? A pass-catching tight end. What is Mike Gesicki? A pass-catching tight end.
So why don't we wait until they actually sign one before we believe it? I know they were in conversations with Jonathan Smith. Okay, let's move on. Since we address a player and we have to do this, Omar and I, we're not going to chime in because our position on the matter has been well established. And you two gentlemen are joining us. So go ahead. Your thoughts on Tua, his performance so far, moving forward, contract extension. Joe, you go first.
Yeah, I wrote a column in the Palm Beach Post prior to Tua's poor performances in the last 2 games of the season. You guys warned me not to. You said, wait, all 3 of you guys. All right, I got no problem airing the dirty laundry, even if it makes me look bad. But I wrote in that column that even if the Dolphins were to lose the last 2 games and Tua wasn't awesome and he looked cold, that they should still extend him. So I'm going to stand by my belief that the Dolphins should extend Tua Tagovailoa. Now, I don't love the idea of him being the highest or one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL based on what he's done and what I think he can do and what I think potential replacements could do. But I understand we're looking at, a deal around $50 million a season. And, I think the Dolphins can make that work. I think Tua can make that work. I think that's fair and reasonable. No. Now, I'd like to see
let him talk.
A 4-year contract and not a 5-year contract. I'd like to see 2 guaranteed years and not 3. So that's my belief.
Why would Tua sign that?
Okay.
Well, it's a heck of a lot more than the $22 million or whatever it is tag that he's a 50-year option that he's scheduled to play on.
And he'd look bad to his peers, and his agent would look bad to his peers.
Okay, Dave, go ahead.
Well, I mean, they got a above average quarterback in Tua. I think that's, and the question is, where's the ceiling? Okay. And to me, and I've written this and talked about it, probably I'm sick of it too. And we're the contract hadn't even been dealt with. And I'm tired of talking about it, but I would make him play on the 5th year and gather more information. There are 2 models to win in the NFL, and they were on display in the Super Bowl. One is you got a great quarterback, you pay him good money. He doesn't have much talent around him. But you can make a good defense. You can find a formula to win with a great quarterback, a lot of different ways. Okay. Or you have
sorry, Dave, that was a great defense though. I think
that's what I said. I said you can build a great defense. You can build parts of a team around them to help them win. I guess maybe that's a better way to say it. Okay. Or you have a good quarterback like San Francisco, but not great. And you have a lot of pieces around them to win. Those are your 2 models on a rookie contract. Cheap contract. I don't know where the Dolphins are, but I would have played it out another year and said, what do we got? What do we got? And the real problem in the Tua conversation, and it's not his fault, is the Dolphins' financial situation. Okay. If they weren't so much over the cap and having a jettison player overboard and everything, it wouldn't be as big an issue. But because of this, I mean, it would be an issue as he's a quarterback, but if you say we have to get rid of Christian Wilkins, we have to get rid of 4 or 5 starters, and then we're going to sign to it. It puts more of a spotlight on what's going on here.
On a scale of 1 to 10, I want to say this: on a scale of 1 to 10, I am still like a 7 in terms of concern about Tua's ability to stay healthy. Now everyone's going to say he played every game last year. Yeah. I think that concussions and hip and every other thing that's been broken and hurt should be a factor. I asked Chris Greer. He said it's not. I think he's just saying that.
Yeah.
Of course he's worried about Tua's ability to stay healthy.
A liar.
No, it doesn't mean he's a liar. He's saying what he thinks he needs to say.
A truth fudger.
Now, what about feelings? What about feelings? My friend Alan Poupar over there, he said that perhaps the Dolphins aren't tagging Christian Wilkins because it would upset him.
No.
Hold on. In part, then you might get angry. Wait,
no,
you didn't say that Christian Wilkins might get
angry. Let me what I said specifically was I raised the possibility that the Dolphins had a handshake agreement with Christian last year after his quote-unquote hold-in to make sure that they didn't have a disgruntled Wilkins coming back and playing strictly because he didn't want to get fined.
And well, if they promised him they wouldn't tag him, that's pretty dumb.
If
they promised him they wouldn't tag him at any point, that's dumb.
I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think they need – here's the thing. The cap space just to transition tag would have accounted for is like the price of going out and getting Leonard Williams and Derrick Henry and re-signing Robert Hunt, the $18 million. We're talking about year one cap space. If I could go get 3 good players, 3 like potentially elite players for the price of transition tagging Christian, just so I can match any offer and that number never leaves my books, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense business-wise, which is why we're seeing Christian get exposed to the market. There's a potential that he can be overpaid for. And there's also the potential that Miami can beat any offer that's out there. They're going to be competitively bidding for him. And in my opinion, even if they fall short of that, you can go get a Leonard Williams for comparable money, and he might be a better scheme fit for this team. And he's only a year older. And he's would you
rather have Christian Wilkins at 4 years, $24 million a season?
I'm not paying him $24 million a season.
Or a tag of $22 million and change. Like I think that if Wilkins was available as a free agent and his agent came to the Dolphins and said he'll sign in Miami for 1 year for $22 million, Greer and Anthony Weaver would say, yeah. Why are you shaking your head? No.
Because if you look at the contracts that the defensive tackles made last year, the new deals, the Quentin Williams deal, the Jeffrey Simmons deal, they're all making under $20 million in the first 3 years of their deal, all of them. So why am I going to pay Christian 22? It doesn't make any sense to me. So if the market for Christian is somewhere in the 20 to 20, I would say $20 million. So 60 million is my magical number because that I only count guaranteed money, and 20 million over 3 years, that's $60 million. That's my magical number. If Christian gets over $60 million, God bless him. Congratulations to the Chicago Bears or the Denver Broncos or the Las Vegas Raiders or the New England Patriots. But we'll be revisiting this in 3 years when they're looking at that deal, just like they did with Olivier Vernon, just like they did with Jarvis Landry, and say, man, that guy got drastically overpaid.
Yeah, my issue more is the big picture with the Christian Wilkins things, which is one is if you're not going to sign him, who are you going to sign? He's your guy. The other one is you went out and you just broke the bank for all these guys not on your team. The Jalen Ramseys, Tyreek Hill, and not on draft picks, and we're not talking talent here. I get there was a talent infusion in these guys, the Bradley Chubbs and all that. Okay, and all of a sudden, this is a guy we're going to hold the big line with. Okay, this is it. He's not going to get the money. Okay, and whether are we quibbling over $1 million or $2 million a year or $5 or $6 million over a year? That's always been the question to me, because they didn't quibble over anything when they were throwing money around 2 years ago, and when they were grabbing players like crazy off the market.
Listen, there's always been an issue with Dolphins players in terms of they want to pay the people outside, but they don't want to pay the guys that we developed and are homegrown. That's been going on for years. Now, is this a perfect example of that to make their argument that if you don't pay Christian exactly who are you going to pay and who are you going to take care of? Yes, you're accurate. However, Christian has a lot of play in this because
sure, absolutely.
Christian has played. Christian's a very good businessman, and he has played hardball with them. And he has won on a lot of instances in this, and he'll probably win in this instance as well, because right now teams bend over backwards to go get upper echelon talent that doesn't have the required draft pick and give up compensation for. But we'll ultimately see where the market leads Christian and how much he plays for.
If the Dolphins didn't tag Christian Wilkins as a show of good faith, because Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel are good guys, and they say, hey, you know what? We're not going to tag you. You go test the market. First of all, I'm like, what? Or as a show of good faith to Athletes First, the powerful sports agency that represents many players in the NFL, including Jalen Ramsey.
Tua.
Holland.
I don't love that because the Dolphins players, as Dave Hyde alluded to, that way, they look at Christian Wilkins and they go, this guy is a hard worker. He's an emotional leader.
Culture
creator. This is the kind of guy we should be re-signing. Why are we letting him leave? And there are things about Christian Wilkins I don't like, including that he doesn't speak with us in the locker room.
Nobody cares about us, Joe. Nobody cares.
I know. And some players like Josh Allen think that perhaps he is alleged to grab testicles. But
there's no alleging there. There's no alleging there. I mean, the evidence is pretty clear.
But I actually think that's the kind of guy you want on your side, right? The Dolphins, they need the guys that on the field are the glass-eating street brawlers, okay? The Robert Hunts and the Christian Wilkins. And they're going to let those guys go. Robert Hunt grew up in a place in Texas where there were rats and roaches and holes in his floor, okay? That's the kind of guy that you want to keep. A success story, a fighter.
Unless he wants to get paid too much.
So I don't like that Robert Hunt and Christian Wilkins are being let to go.
Here's the thing, though, Joe. The one problem with the tag with Wilkins is the second you put on the tag, that's $22 million on your books, assuming it's a franchise tag. $22 million on your book, that cap number stays there until you can replace it with an extension with a lower first-year number. And then have fun negotiating with Christian's agent when he knows that you want to reduce his cap number, and I mean ASAP. So that hamstrings you even more than they're already hamstrung.
Chris Greer said, "Don't worry about it." He said he was on top of it.
What do you think the chances of him returning are? Usually, when a guy hits free agency like that,
like Xavier Howard.
There's 31 teams out there. Somebody's going to make him a big offer.
Why did Chris Greer say the window was open for Xavier Howard to return, and Xavier said he never had that conversation with Chris Greer? That's not a good look.
No,
let's be honest.
Well, it's about winning PR, and unfortunately, Chris Greer never expected Xavier to come out and on the record say, "Yeah, that wasn't true," and it makes him look like a liar. But Xavier's not worried about securing his legacy with the Dolphins. He's worried about getting the bag, and he doesn't want any team thinking that he's out here going to give Dolphins an opportunity to match any offer.
But you don't think the Dolphins said to Xavier or his agent, here's the number we'll go to. If he doesn't,
I know for a fact that they did not.
They did not. Okay.
They did not. And what Chris Greer says, that they had this long, luxurious conversation and reminisce. Xavier told me the conversation was 90 seconds.
Okay.
So, but we get in. It's all about image and posturing, and
Chris Greer probably said to agent David Cantor, if you guys don't get what you want, feel free to come back and talk to us. That probably happened. That's my
one would think.
Yeah. Okay.
But that wasn't what he said. He said he had this long history rewinding conversation. But anyway, let's listen.
Dave, you were going to chime in?
No, my question is I don't care about the posturing and all the behind the scenes stuff. I'm interested in what they're doing. What are the the hard points here? And to me, once they let Christian Wilkins hit the market, he's gone. I mean, maybe
5%
percentage where
5%.
5%. I wouldn't. Yeah, I think it's low.
I put it at 15. I put it at 15. Okay, questions about money.
Anywhere in there, I agree with. It's a low percent that he returns.
He's told his teammates he's gone. So he also told his teammates that he was not going to get the tag, which I thought was just crazy, and he turned out to be right. So Christian knows way more than we know about this situation, and it sounds like he's gone. He's gone and said his goodbyes.
All right, so raise your hand if you think that not tagging Christian Wilkins was a mistake by the Dolphins. Very interesting.
Not tagging him?
Well,
okay.
I think it was a mistake, but it was a mistake born of the situation they created by themselves. So it was a mistake a few years in the making, more than, you know.
I think you cannot tag him because it would prevent you from being able to build a solid competitive roster. And I'm not tagging him and making him account for 3 starting players.
I don't think they're signing first-day free agents anyway.
I hope they will, because if they don't, then this is a big waste of time. If you're gonna just think about how Steve Ross operates, and we all know how Steve Ross operates. This is about selling hope. Tell me how you could sell hope this offseason, considering there's going to be a mad, ridiculous exodus of talent. And here you were, 11-win team that fell short because of injuries. I don't want to hear a word from you, Poupard. And at least that's how you're selling it. And then all of a sudden you come back a worse team. Like you can't sell that to people. You got to go get
Tua and Tyreek. That's how they're going to sell it. We still have Tua and Tyreek, and watch him break. Tua now has got a quarterback coach. So, and then what else? He's doing something else. So he's gonna take the next step, and he's going to continue his ascent that's never stopped, even though it kind of actually did last year. But nobody wants to hear that. Oops, did I say that out loud? Yes, in a lot of ways, his 2023 season was kind of the same as 2022.
Who would you rather have on the roster next year?
Kirk Cousins,
Christian Wilkins, or Andrew Van Ginkel, Deshaun Elliott, and give me a third guy who's a free agent in that.
Robert Hunt.
No, that's too expensive.
Yeah,
Robert Hunt's going to get $15 million. I don't think.
Braxton Berrios. Let's say Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith. So Jonnu Smith, Deshaun Elliott, and who's the third guy I said?
Van Ginkel, you said.
And Andrew Van Ginkel or Christian Wilkins. I'm giving you a choice. 3 or 1.
No,
Wilkins
I think all those players that you just mentioned, they're probably half of what the transition tag for Christian would have been. Oh yeah, in year 1 cap numbers, what's Van Ginkel going to get? $7 million.
Van Ginkel's going to get like 8 or 9, 8.
I think he's at about 7. 7 a year. 3 years, $21 million. Half of it guaranteed. I think Deshaun Elliott is probably going to be at a $2.5 million a year situation. And then Jonnu Smith. I'm not paying. I would be surprised if he got more than $5 million a year. This is, if you think about the market, like look what Mike Gesicki got. Mike Gesicki got 6 last year. Now Jonnu Smith is probably a better player than Mike Gesicki. So, but are you really going to pay him more than you're going to pay Durham Smythe? And I don't know if that's the case in Miami. To me, it's about they have to go get players that can improve this team and improve this roster in areas of weakness.
Arden and Isaiah Wynn, he's the 4th guy. Would you rather have Christian Wilkins or those 4 players?
Christian's a cornerstone piece. He's a foundational player. I still think that they're going to bid on Christian, and if they don't get Christian, they're going to go try to get another upper echelon player to try to replace him.
Let me rephrase this.
And save face.
Christian Wilkins aside, what's the one free agent you do not want to see leave if you're the Dolphins? Dave, go first.
I'm trying to think who.
Connor Williams, Robert Hunt,
Van Ginkel, Williams.
I mean, Robert Hunt comes to mind in that all of a sudden you have weakened the defensive line. I mean, think of it. Next year, the defensive line from who started the season last year to this year, there'll be one player, Zach Sealer. Everybody else won't be there. Might not be there. Who knows how long the injuries will take?
There are 4 players who are actually going to be on this defense next year that were on the defense last year.
So you've weakened the defensive line, and look, you need to protect Tua. You need to protect Tua, and so if you're asking me who to sign, and I'm not getting into just a fantasy thing without contracts and all that, I would say Robert Hunt, and just because you can't keep weakening the offensive line.
And Robert Hunt is going. He's leaving. He's not going to be
I know.
No, sadly, Robert Hunt is an amazing guy. Him and Jerome Baker are two absolute go-to good guys in the locker room.
Yes.
Hate to see them leave.
I love to see them leave. I want to see them get paid.
Joe, he posted on his Instagram the picture of Hard Rock Stadium in the practice field, so I guess he's coming back. No. I know.
I think he was saying goodbye.
To underscore Joe's point, though, these are great people in addition to very good players, too. So I'm glad someone else is having issues here.
Listen, to me, it's about making sure. I don't care that guys go make money. I want Robert Hunt to get the biggest bag possible. And I know that the Dolphins are just not in a position to give him that bag right now. And that doesn't mean
Zach Sealer is almost as good as Christian Wilkins. So kudos to Chris Greer, Brandon Shore, and those guys for locking him up at $10 million a season for 3 years. Excellent move.
On the week that he suffered a knee injury.
I challenge you guys to go find another Zach Sealer. If you can find
I
one,
will
find
also
another.
say we're going to find out. And look, everybody, I agree with you, Joe. Very talented, great find. We're going to find out how good he is this year. When he doesn't have Wilkins beside him, when he doesn't have those two defensive ends beside, all of a sudden, okay, who are we going to block? And you know, I think a lot of it's roles in sports. And
I think he's really good.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I said we're going to find out. We're going to find out how good he is this year.
Let me flip this conversation. One player, you guys see the names of the guys who are getting dislodged from their teams: Jeffrey Simmons, Jamal Adams, Ladarius White, even though he's still injured.
Jeffrey Simmons got cut.
No, not Jeffrey Simmons.
The safety Simmons.
Justin Simmons.
I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, I wish Jeffrey Simmons got cut. One free agent or player recently released that you would love to see the Dolphins add to actually improve this roster. Joe, you start.
Well, Chris Greer loves corners, and so you have to imagine that he's going to be interested in signing one of these proven corners, whether it's Tre'Davious White or there's like 7 of them. And I also think he's going to be in on one of the big name running backs. I hope in the end that maybe they don't sign one of those big name running backs, because I don't know, for example, how much Derrick Henry has left. I'm not a huge Derrick Henry guy. I think you've seen that these big name superstar running backs, their yards per carry have all gone down. It's the trend you saw with Dalvin Cook. And so I usually say sign a running back. I'm going to suggest to Chris Greer that he not actually spend money on one of these big name running backs. Maybe sign a J.K. Dobbins at a low price as a high ceiling guy coming off an injury, something more like that. But I know that he's going to pursue these corners. Some of them, the names are bigger than the actual player. Yeah. So but I will say he's going to sign a corner and not trust Cam Smith, which I wrote a whole column in the Palm Beach Post saying, don't draft a corner, trust Cam Smith.
I think you do both. I agree with both. You need a cornerback, but you better hope Cam Smith gets on the field. And this is a real problem. I'm not getting your question, Omar, but the real problem with losing these free agents, usually you lose free agents, the young players bubble up and take their spot. The Dolphins this gets to the plan, 3 years now of least draft capital in NFL history. You combine these 3 years, the least draft. So there aren't young players.
It's been an era F them picks, Dave. This is how they've built this team, and unfortunately, they don't have much young talent. It's a very barren young talent crop of players.
Yeah. So, I'm waiting for a player that. Who would you want? I'm trying to think who I really want.
Omar wants Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I know.
But it's not the player.
Some running back going to Najee Harris. I remember talking forever about Najee Harris, right?
It's not the player. It's the identity change. If you want to look at the Miami Dolphins, they are a finesse team. How do you change that image? How do you change? You bring that sledgehammer. And you could be finesse all you want on the outside, but on the inside, you bring in that hammer.
Do you think Mike McDaniel wants to make that climate change basically to that? That's just not bringing in Derrick Henry. That's bringing in a whole different idea and mindset to this offense of what
I think he's smart enough. I think he's creative enough. I think he's not a boxing himself into a corner guy. This guy was a run game specialist before he got Tyreek Hill.
They ran the ball. They ran the ball last year.
I know they did. And for the record, I love Raheem Mostert. I think he's a very good player. He's a Pro Bowler. He had a phenomenal season. My point, and Devon Achane, I don't have a single issue with him. He could be a 1,000-yard back in the NFL next season. He could be the best back in the NFL next season. However, this is about changing your identity and forcing teams to make tough decisions, whether or not they're going to put 8 in the box or they're going to put 2 safeties high. If you can do that on every single snap, you got something special there.
Identity is always going to be speed. From today to the moment Mike McDaniel is eventually fired. Identity is always going to be speed. Listen, Mike McDaniel is sitting there thinking, I don't need Derrick Henry. I got Chris Brooks. That's what he's thinking. No, really, he doesn't want to use any resources on running backs, even though they did get Achane. And I'm sure he thinks Achane can be amazing.
Last question here. We're 5 years in, thereabouts, 4 years in. How would we assess the rebuilding project that was undertaken back then? Dave or Joe, you can start with whoever wants to go first.
Well, I asked Chris Greer that question, and he said he restarted it when Mike McDaniel came in. So it's only 2 years in. And I was like, oh, I'm not resetting my clock.
Neither am I, Dave.
I said at the start, I don't like this. I don't like tanking. Because ultimately it always comes down to the same thing. And I said at the top of the show, sound football decision. Are you going to make good football decisions? That's what, no matter how you try to trick it and pull the end run, and we're going to lose 2 years, but we'll get some great players, and then we're going to overspend. I don't like this whole system because, to Omar's point, at the end, it's not sustainable. I mean, you're spending so much money that's going to be coming due about the same time between whatever young players you like and your older players that you got. And now you have health. Of course, you have health questions. A lot of your guys are older, and that happens in the NFL. Surprise! They get hurt. And Chris Greer doesn't care about signing guys who were injured. He said, that's
what's left on the bargain bin, Dave. When you have to sign guys to 1-year contracts for.
Well, I get that part. I get that part. Look, we're talking investment dollars here. We're not talking. Of course, you take chances with injured players, whether it's a draft or free agency. But what are you investing in it, right? You're not investing your first round pick in it. You're investing your 3rd or 4th or 5th, depending on the player. So
what decisions have they made that really bothered you, other than drafting Cam Smith and getting nothing out of him as a rookie? I'm not doing that to a guy on his first year. Okay, we'll see where he is down the line. Bradley Chubb, Jalen Ramsey, Tua. What decision have they made?
My thing is much bigger than individual. It's the whole philosophy of just, we're going to my way is the Miami Heat way. We're going to get into each year. We're going to try to win each year. And if we don't, we'll figure out what went wrong in the offseason. And then we're going to try to win the next year. Okay. And that served them really well because they're really smart. Okay.
At the top.
So the Dolphins had 10 first and second round draft picks in a 3-year window. You could argue that 7 of them hit, which is pretty good. Now you're supposed to hit on 7 out of 10, at least 6. All right. So, but here's the problem: when you create this cluster or this wave of pretty surefire picks, they all either leave in free agency or cost a lot of money to bring back at the same time. So here's the window, guys. Right? These are the good players. Waddle, Phillips, Holland. You want to re-sign all 3 of them. Tua, Austin, Hunt, Wilkins. That's 7. You want to re-sign all those guys.
Yeah.
Eichenberg, probably not a great pick. Jury's still out a little bit. Raekwon Davis probably didn't meet expectations. And obviously, Igbenogany was the worst pick of all. Ironically, the Dolphins passed on a couple of running backs that they might be able to sign now in free agency. But do you think that when Tom Garfinkel, Brandon Shore, anyway, all the folks who are mapping out the rebuild plan, when they say, okay, we're going to have 10 picks in the first 3 rounds, we're going to create a window of salary cap space where we can trade for guys and sign big name free agents. Do you think that they got to 2024 in their plan? Like, when they got here,
Sure.
they certainly thought that they would have at least one playoff win. So the fact that they've gotten all the way here, 5 years later, 0 playoff wins is a colossal disappointment. Can't give them more than a C+ in terms of the execution of the plan.
To me, it starts with the quarterback. I'm one of
They
those.
got it right.
Did they though? Did they though?
We'll see.
Dave's rubbing his eyes.
And yes, I'm going to go there. Did they though?
No, we will see. He certainly won more than Justin Herbert.
Team game. TEAM. Team game.
Yeah, it's always a team game when it's convenient for you to make the team game.
Since you went there, Omar, Joe, Dave, right now, Tua or Justin Herbert.
Oh my God.
Come on, you went there. Go ahead.
For me, it'd be Justin Herbert. I mean, put him in the open market. Who do? Let's talk about if Tua goes in the open market to this whole contract extension.
Yeah, exactly.
Why you're bidding against yourselves right now? Why?
Correct.
Why do that? But anyways, let Joe answer that.
Joe,
most NFL teams right now would absolutely take Justin Herbert. I'm going to say 24 out of 32. So I would have to defer to the expertise of what I believe the NFL general managers would do, which is to select the bigger, taller, stronger,
because they all believe
more
that they
athletic
can fix
guy.
him. They all believe that they can fix him. Now,
McDaniel with Tua, Omar, come on.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. I mean, the question is who's got more upside, and clearly Herbert has more upside. But Tua right now is as polished a commodity as. Oh, stop it!
He's a good fit for the offense. He's a good fit for the offense.
Led the #1 offense in the NFL.
No, Tyreek Hill led the #1 offense in the NFL.
Oh wow!
Let's be honest.
Okay, so Tyreek Hill decides who gets the ball. But listen,
he's the one who gets open and creates.
The question is there a next level for Tua?
Right.
That's it. I don't know the answer to that question. But the problem that I have is there's some people, I'm not going to say who they are, but they wear Montreal Expos hats, who believe that this guy is capped out after 5 years. Just turned what, 20?
Incorrect. I have said the question is significant, and I never said he was tapped out. I said the question is significant enough as to whether he is tapped out to not lock yourself into him for another 3 years. That's what I said. Okay. Not the same thing.
3 years of a commitment to him when you're already committed for one. I don't see the harm in it. Am I paying? One, no quarterback is making $50 million. I wrote that in alldolphins.com. You can look at the numbers. There isn't a single player or quarterback in the NFL making $50 million. So all the people reporting that Tua's going to get a $50 million deal, stop reporting fake numbers. Quarterbacks do not make $50 million. The best, Patrick Mahomes, doesn't even make $50 million. So why is Tua going to make $50 million?
Well, you're just talking about, you're saying it's not going to be guaranteed.
No. This is not guaranteed. Patrick Mahomes has never made $50 million a year. The only quarterback that's ever made
45, right? He took less.
No. Patrick Mahomes makes $45 million a year, and he's going to get his contract redone. That will probably get him to $50 million a year. But for me, I'm curious what Kirk Cousins' deal is going to look like. And at that price point, because to me, they're similar quarterbacks, numbers, stats killers who've never won anything except Kirk Cousins has got some playoff wins. At that price point is probably the price point that I'm going to set for Tua, whatever it is, $35, $40 million a year. But please, people, if you take anything from this conversation, there isn't a single quarterback, not Lamar, not Patrick Mahomes, not Joe Burrow, who's making $50 million.
Omar, the tweet's going to go out. The tweet's going to go out from Adam and Ian, and it's going to say,
but that doesn't mean it's accurate.
5 years, $250 million. That's what the tweet's going to say, and it's coming. So that we can break down how much the contract.
How much of that is real money? Just like Tyreek Hill is making $30 million a year. No, he's not. He's making $24 million a year. And then there's a big balloon payment at the end of it for $45 million that he will never see that bumps up his average salary. It's the same thing with these quarterbacks. And yes, a lot of them get their contracts restructured because teams have to restructure their contracts. And then they fudge the money some more and give them whatever. But quarterbacks are really making about $42 million a year.
Omar, that's agent talk to bump up the prestige of the contract. Let's not get hung up on this conversation too much. Final thoughts, Joe and Dave. Joe, you first.
I just want to say that Tua Tagovailoa is talented enough and a good enough fit for this offense to lead the Dolphins to a playoff win in 2024. My concern is not as much about Tua as it is about all the talented players that the Dolphins seem poised to lose right now, and whether or not they're going to be able to replace them with players who are anywhere close to as capable. And repeating the solid performance of the offensive line from last year is going to be an immense challenge for Butch Barry, who we have all rightly celebrated.
Dave?
Excellent. That was phenomenal.
Yeah, that's good, Joe. You ought to do TV, you know.
You might want to think about a career at ESPN, Jeff.
See, my thought is we are in the middle of a defining offseason for the Dolphins, even more than usual, in that a lot of currents have come together, financial, age on their draft picks are starting their good draft picks, as Joe pointed out, are right there where you either got to extend them or, in Christian Wilkins' case, let them walk. And then overall roster talent. I'm not the first one to raise this question. Can they be better next year? Can they be better? There's only one way. And that they hit on pretty much everything, so much, and make good economic buys on the market, and get their first and second round pick to come in and play the first year. And so we're not saying 3 years down the line, well, how is this guy? Can he play or not play? Or, well, see, he got good in his third or fourth year. Well, okay, but you missed 3 years.
We're still waiting on Channing Tindall here.
So that's my point. The big giant off season for this team.
All right. Well, gentlemen, we appreciate you for joining the All Dolphins podcast. Obviously, those who are interested in following Dave Hyde, he does phenomenal work with the Sun Sentinel, columnist, Broward County Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame.
I'm old, Joe. That's all it is, Omar.
It's new goals for me, Dave. And Joe Schad with the Palm Beach Post. Joe does phenomenal work with the Palm Beach Post. And him and his partner Hal Habib. And you know how to find us. Habib, sorry.
One time I asked Dave Hyde, I said, Dave, I'm going to be writing columns now for the Palm Beach Post. It's a big deal. Joe? It's a big deal. I go, Dave, I've always admired you. I think you're one of the best. You're a legend. You're an institution.
He did not phrase it that way. He did not phrase it that way. Just so you know, that's not how we talk.
What advice can you give me? What tips? What's your process? He goes, I don't know.
There you go.
It's a trick.
He's like, I'm not sharing my tools with you.
He's holding out. He's a great mentor.
You wake up each day and you say, look at that blank screen and say, well, what am I going to write? I love it when people ask us, well, hey, what were you thinking at the game when this and this happened? And I was thinking, what am I going to write? That's all I think about.
Deadline. Yeah.
What am I going to
write? You think, meet deadline is this time. Words need to start coming out.
No, and fans ask us, like, are you rooting in the process? Yeah, we're rooting for an easy story to write. Am I right?
Yes.
I root for the home team, me.
There you go. Yeah, me.
Root for the win, because that means we're all doing better and making more money.
I will say one thing. If it always kills me when people say, oh, you must love, you get to rip the Dolphins or rip this team or that team. I go, because that you're making money. It's for clicks. You know what gets clicks? Championship teams, winning teams. It was fun this season when the Dolphins were winning.
Absolutely.
Or when the Heat win, when anybody wins. That's what sells in sports. So,
absolutely.
So hopefully, Chris Greer can put together a winning product. Obviously, gentlemen, we appreciate your time. You guys know how to find us, alldolphins.com. Everything on the podcast, All Dolphins. And we appreciate you guys for your time, and we'll see you later.
See you guys.
Thanks.